Today's guest is a clinical psychologist and a couples counselor who's helped thousands reset their love lives through therapy, courses, and her new book, When Will It Happen for Me? She's lived the heartbreak, called off the wedding, and turned her own story into a shame-free guide to finding healthy love. If you've ever felt like love keeps slipping through your fingers, this is the conversation that might change everything. Please welcome Phoebe Rogers.
Thank you so much. I loved the intro.
My pleasure. Let's start from the question that everyone might have. Tell us about your journey. How did you get into this relationship space? How did you become so passionate about it?
My parents worked in the helping profession, and so I was always curious about people and helping people, and so it just seemed the natural fit for me, with my curiosity, with my kindness and warmth. And I'd worked with children at one point in my career and then realised I really need to help the parents and their relationship and the couple system, and also had my own relationship struggles in the background. So going from psychology and into couples therapy seems really natural. It's a perfect fit.
Perfect fit. What about your journey through love? How did you learn so much? Were there certain things that you experienced that gave you so much perspective around this entire aspect of finding love?
Yes, so much heartbreak and such a sense of, will I ever be able to get this right? Will I ever be able to meet a person where I can have a lasting relationship? And up until my 30s, my mid-30s, I felt like I kept making these errors, these mistakes in terms of the partners I would choose. Because they weren't emotionally available, they had their own mental health struggles. I became stressed and anxious. I was over-functioning. I was giving everything of myself to try and really make my partner happy, and felt like it wasn't working, and really losing myself and not liking who I was becoming because I was just pleasing. And we talked a little bit about my story. I got to the point where I made this final mistake. I got swept off my feet and then realized I was in this same type of relationship at the age of 36 when I really so much wanted my happy ending. I decided to call off my engagement. We were engaged and we were due to be married 2 months before I said, I can't do this. And that was such a pivotal point.
I'm sure it was a pivotal point.
Yes.
My question is, when you were going through that, firstly, what was the mistake that you felt you were making on a repeated basis that led you to this realization, this is not right for me?
Yeah, I think a sense of rushing. What I have learned about myself is actually I had a deep fear of being alone, and that really comes from early life. I think in my parents' separation and maybe not feeling understood, but I was seeking for connection, and that was driving me to choose anyone who showed me love. And I got caught up in intensity of the relationship, of people who were charming, smooth, emotional. And because I wanted that so much, I think I would minimize all the red flags that were there in terms of their anger, their irritability, their unhappiness with their life, not having a life direction, in terms of their jealousy, of other friendships that I had maintained, of just my life really, and realizing that our values were so misaligned. In my last relationship, I felt like I couldn't talk about work, I couldn't celebrate my wins at work, I couldn't talk about mental health, and so very clearly I was minimizing red flags. I was focusing on, let's just make this work so I have a person by my side for the rest of my life, because I really think life was feeling overwhelming on my own. Like, how do I navigate all the stresses of life as a single woman? And I don't think I ever really healed from all these past breakups. I just plodded on and looked for the next person and the next person, really focusing on how do I get my needs met from a partner, from a romantic partner, rather than how do I meet my own emotional needs. And I think that is such a core piece.
That's so profound and so deep, because I'm sure there are so many people right now who struggle with probably a sense of loneliness and a lack of connection, which in turn drives them to continuously look for this perfect person, and they keep feeling hurt, and they're stuck in a loop, and they are just not sure what to do in that situation. How did you heal from it? What was the process?
I think the first very step was really owning that and really confronting myself and being very clear on, this is the pattern that I've chosen, and really being brave and deciding to leave. Like, that was the first step, to make that choice of, I have to be on my own. I can be on my own. I will be alone. But it was like I had to face myself. And then the work that really transformed my life was Schema Therapy, which is all about understanding your early life wounds and becoming a loving parent, nurturer, support to yourself. So it was really understanding, okay, when I feel abandoned in my relationships, I feel anxious inside. And instead of getting someone else to support me through that, or clinging or pursuing the wrong person, actually I can talk to myself. I can imagine my younger self, little Phoebe, think about what was going on for her, and I may feel that experience in my body, or think about a particular memory, and it's as if older me is giving her love, support, care, validating her emotions, and connection. And so I began to realize that everything I was seeking from someone else, I could give to myself. And that was profound, truly.
How long did that process take for you to work on yourself?
Well, I think it's really important to say I'd been in lots of therapy. I had a point earlier in my life I was quite depressed, and again I think alone and disconnected, and so I'd done like 5 years of therapy, and then I'd met this person that I nearly married, and you know what, then I was out of therapy. It was like the Band-Aid, things are all good again, right? And so then I went on a bit of a search using my professional knowledge after calling off the wedding and going, surely there has to be some other form of work, of therapy, that can make an actual difference to my life, that can stop me doing the things that I'm doing. And so I discovered Schema Therapy. I was seeing an individual therapist, and then I also found a women's coaching group using this model and using a lot of inner child work. And I think for about 3 to 5 months, I did that work quite intensely in terms of soothing myself when I'm anxious, when I'm triggered, understanding my patterns when I decided to date again. And it really made sense. It really resonated. And I developed this sense of, okay, if I'm dating and someone pulls away, or they ghost me, or I'm not hearing from them, it's not really about them. That the present is actually less important. This is getting to something way deeper inside of me from the past. I need to soothe that younger part of me, that anxious part of me that remains inside, that's terrified of being alone. And so sometimes daily I would talk to my younger self. I'd have a picture of her on my bathroom mirror, or a little reminder on my desk to check in with myself. And so I was doing that intensely for a few months, actually. It wasn't a huge amount of time.
That's fascinating. The reason I asked this question is one of the hardest parts, I think, when you go through such a difficult process is trying to understand the line between when I need to continue working on myself and when am I ready to start looking for someone else. I think that's such a difficult line. How should someone think about that?
And I talk about it in my book, and I say maybe don't do what I did, but I don't know how fully healed and ready I was, but I was doing the work whilst I was dating. What I say is, if you're going to date and you know you'll be triggered, make sure you have a level of resilience and coping skills within you. That you'll have the capacity to soothe yourself, to not personalize rejection, to trust that you will bounce back, to have a sense of optimism, that this pain won't last. And if you have that, it's okay. I would also say have a commitment to yourself. If you really want to date and find someone who's good for you, really make this commitment to walk away if it's not good. If you do see red flags, be honest about those. If you're feeling anxious and triggered all of the time and you feel it's about the person and they're not responsive to your needs, be prepared to walk away. Then you can date.
Okay. And you spoke about something very crucial there, which is being aware that you are ready to handle any kind of challenges, or you're prepared for being in that context where it could test you.
Yeah.
Is there a way you recommend people to try and gauge if they're resilient enough, if they are kind of ready for that? And I know I'm digging a little deep here, but I'm just trying to see if there's a tangible way someone can try and see they're ready.
I think if you have this sense of, well, you're going to have to test it. So you might hop on the apps, you might ask a friend to introduce you. I would be looking at, is my emotional reaction too big? Does it kind of feel out of proportion for some reason? Like, am I overly personalizing this other person's behavior, whether it's their texting, they're communicating? Am I reading between the lines too much? Am I ruminating? Am I doubting myself? If it's preoccupying me, I also think some of that will just happen. It's unavoidable if we have a traumatic past. You want to be able to stay in your own life, I think. And if it's like consuming you, maybe rethink. Yeah.
Okay. So as you were speaking about it, I was just wondering, maybe a great way people can kind of gauge this is try and look at other areas of their life. Because my assumption is the same patterns will repeat in other areas of their life. And if they can see those patterns are diminished, they are much more in control and feel more ready, then that's a green signal to kind of get back into the waters. What do you feel about that?
Yeah, I love that. You're absolutely spot on. It's a brilliant point, because these schemas, these life patterns, these core wounds, our beliefs, they will show up in work. You know, the boss who doesn't say, well done, good work. The friend who doesn't always get back to us. Yeah. And our sense of rejection is going to be there. And yes, if we can't manage that, I think that's a beautiful tip that people can take away, actually.
Awesome. And I think this is the perfect time to try our first fun question. So I don't know if this is that much fun, but I really wondered your perspective. It's an online question, and I've taken a question where people had posted it on social media. Someone has this experience, and I just wanted to see what you would say about it, right? So here's what they said. My boyfriend says he can interrupt me when we are talking because he has ADHD. But when I interrupt him, he gets very upset and he will walk away. How would you deal with this?
It's really interesting. I work a lot with couples. I work a lot with neurodivergent couples. I'm a late diagnosed ADHDer, so I relate to that a lot. It's really interesting. And so I can understand, if we think about ADHD, low frustration tolerance, impulsivity verbally, the need to get things out, and also the rejection sensitivity, right? Like if you don't listen to me or you interrupt me, I'm not going to feel important. And so what I would say is everyone has a responsibility to work on their part in the relationship. The ADHDer has a responsibility to work. The non-ADHDer, they can develop some compassion and understanding about the condition, but they also deserve to speak. And so I'd encourage each of them to be really accountable for their parts. I would encourage a sense of compassion for both, the person who wants to speak and the person who wants to be heard. And I might do some skills work with them in terms of like really slowing down, concise, short, to the point, validating the reactivity and the sense of rejection, but both are hurting there.
Oh, it's a very tricky situation. So based on what you said, I hear that this is a typical pattern that people with ADHD go through. And so
Yes.
When you're on the other side, probably one thing that may really help is to be aware that ADHD isn't just limited to their attention issues, but it's also other things that it propels into, which you spoke about frustration tolerance, which is what it seems like here. He's not able to face frustration, he's not able to handle rejection, and so there's impulsive outbursts there. So that seems like the first thing. In fact, before you mentioned this, I wasn't even aware about the frustration tolerance and those other facets. So that's why I mentioned the awareness becomes so important first before anything else.
So important. I mean, I could talk all day about this topic, but I think the emotionality part of ADHD and the emotional dysregulation part is so misunderstood, and so I hope that couple considers that part too. Yeah.
Absolutely. In such a situation, or based on what they described, if the other person says, okay, I'm going to work on it, do you recommend that, they continue, try to see if things change, or is there something you say, there are certain times where this is not going to fit?
I think as a partner, you would want to see your partner working on things with you. I mean, that's generally how couples therapy works. You know that. But someone's progress might be slower, and certainly, like, ADHD is real. It limits our progress. But there are really great treatments that help. So I think you would want to see progress, and you would want to see developing skills in emotion regulation, slowing down. And you can be emotional, but don't be mean, right? There's a line, and don't be critical, don't be mean, apologize, make amends. I have hope for this couple, but they have to do the work.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
absolutely. And I think one of my fundamental beliefs is a very important component for relationships, and this is something I see as the biggest green flag, is if someone has a growth mindset and an affinity to continuously work on themselves, to continuously see, okay, this is an area I need to change, oh, this is a spot I can work on. It need not be immediately, but they have this awareness that, okay, this is something where I keep slipping up on, and I can do better on this. And I think that I find that to be the biggest green flag. If someone has that, that's amazing.
Yes, effort, and yeah, that's very attractive. Absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Now,
Pleasure.
I wanted to kind of ask you about your new book that just released. Who is it for? And why is it an absolutely must read for them?
Well, certainly it's written for women, but I think there are universal themes in the book. But I wrote this book because I was sick of receiving these messages of be happy on your own. And that's certainly true, but it's also okay to want connection. I just knew I wanted someone who was on my team and someone to share my life with. And I'm not dependent on them at all, but I really wanted women to feel like it's okay that I want love, and it's okay that I don't have it all figured out. And that was so important to send that message to women in particular, and to let them know that they've been conditioned to seek people's approval, to be pleasing, to be extra kind, and because of that, they may actually be getting in their own way when it comes to love. They may actually be blocking it because they give and they're not comfortable with receiving. And I also wanted all humans who'd experienced trauma in their past and didn't have a great model of how a healthy relationship looks to be able to understand how a healthy relationship looks and how they can be healthy within a relationship. And I also wanted to demystify dating and dating apps and how you can find your person. I think there's a really clear process. I said to a colleague, it was like I cracked the code on love, and love is like really so complex and tricky for a lot of us.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be. Yeah.
That's amazing. Thank you for writing that book. You know, when people get into dating, there are so many different facets to it. When they're trying to find love, and they're trying to figure so many aspects of it. What are 3 expectations or 3 aspects of a healthy relationship that you feel should be present?
I would start, I think a lot of people overlook values. Okay, are our values actually aligned in terms of what do we both want for ourselves and the future, and how would we approach a relationship in terms of teamwork, communication, self-help, growth mindset, all of those things. And that was really important because I felt I had never taken that part seriously. Like, I just thought love was enough. So please look at your values and the person you're choosing, look at their values. I would say learn to figure out how an emotionally safe person feels. And so I think a lot of us, when we're experiencing dating anxiety or anxiety in a new relationship, we blame ourselves. We go, I'm too sensitive, I'm too much, I'm overthinking this. And that's often a trauma response and from being blamed in the past and told you too much. And so I would say really listen to how your body is feeling and listen to your brain, and are you overthinking and ruminating and doubting yourself? Because ultimately, if you're with a safe person, that nervous energy will settle. So please listen to how you feel and learn to be vulnerable. It's really scary. I think for a lot of us, it brings up fears of rejection, but get comfortable with yourself having needs, like having emotional needs, wanting someone to care about how you feel, wanting to hear from someone, wanting dates planned, feeling excited about a future. It's okay to have needs.
Something my wife says, what you said reminded me of something my wife says. And she's amazing. She's really smart, really wise. She says, it's okay to be selfish. It's okay to say you need this. You don't need to be sacrificing always. Because a lot of us, we grow up in certain households where sacrificing is such a big aspect, right? If you sacrifice, then you're amazing, and you get that importance by sacrificing. But we have to unlearn that and learn the fine line between when it's okay to sacrifice and when you need to be selfish.
She's wise.
She's amazing.
Absolutely. It's so ingrained. I think in particular cultures, it's really ingrained. And for women, it's like we're meant to be serving and kind and checking in with everyone's feelings all of the time. And that's how we lose ourselves. And so, yes, we feel like we're being awful human beings when we say, please notice me. Please do something for me. Care about me. And so it's a completely different energy and space for a lot of us to inhabit, but so critical.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think sometimes it's so hard to say, I need this. It's such a important aspect. I saw in a reel that you had posted, you mentioned that relationship should feel effortless is propaganda. Why do you look at that? And that was such a energetic response there.
I think we've been sold this lie from, Disney movies being swept off your feet. Why would it just work? Think about, if we're talking about a couple of two unique individuals, often different culture, different upbringing, maybe different religion, gender roles, all of those things, family trauma, that is going to set you up for miscommunications, misunderstandings. Why would it just be easy? And it's so interesting to me, like in my beautiful relationship, how often we misunderstand each other or mishear things, and it needs clarifying. And, if you're two professionals, you work hard, life is busy, you're going to lose connection. So you're going to have to learn to use your voice. And that's the effort. And sometimes it'll be harder than others. It should be joyful. It should feel safe and like home, but it requires work.
It does.
Yeah.
Something, I was speaking to another guest on the podcast, and she was saying that if you just imagine, like, let's say you're climbing up a mountain. If the mountain was completely smooth, you will actually just go down. You'll be slipping down. You won't be going up. And if you're not going up, if you're not becoming better, you're never going to feel better about yourself. And that is the value of that little bit of effort, or some effort that you need to put into a relationship.
100%. And maybe you relate. I feel so proud of myself that I'm a grown up and I found my voice and I talk about what's bothering me. My partner does too, and we figure it out together. I feel huge pride from that. Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, this is the perfect segue for our next fun little segment. So this one is called Relationship Hot Seat. So I'm going to ask you about 5 to 10 questions, and it's going to be more rapid fire, and then we can explore why you mentioned each of those.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you're ready, we can go for it.
Go.
Okay, biggest green flag in a partner?
Communication.
Okay, your personal toxic trait in relationships?
I nag and complain. Yeah.
Worst date you've ever been on?
When I had to pay on the first date.
Okay. Ever gone back to an ex?
Yeah.
Okay. Love at first sight, real or fake?
Fake. Yeah.
Okay. Text back fast or play it cool?
Oh, I reply straight away.
Okay. What's more important, passion or peace?
Peace.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Have you ever stalked an ex online?
Oh yeah, I've been checking in. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, what's your most controversial dating opinion?
Controversial dating opinion. Be yourself. Put it all out there. Yeah.
Okay, and finally, would you date someone who's never been in love?
Yes. Yes, and I am. Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Those were
Yeah.
very interesting responses. I would love to, kind of dig into a couple of them.
Yeah.
You mentioned love at first sight is a fake. Tell me more
Yeah.
about that.
I think that's wounds. I think that's childhood idealization and projection onto this person. If they feel familiar, if they create a sense of anxiety and kind of a nervous system activation within you, we think that's chemistry, and I think that's your body saying, watch out.
Okay. You said peace is more important than passion. What made you say that?
Passion doesn't last. It hasn't lasted for me. And again, it's put my nervous system all over the place. And I have thought passion has meant something deep, and it just hasn't. Peace is treasured for me. Peace and stability is, amazing.
I don't remember what you mentioned for most most controversial dating opinion. Just putting yourself out there. Why is it controversial?
Well, I think there's all this advice of like what to talk about on the first date, and what to say, and how to get him or them to text you back, and all these games and manipulation, which is so inauthentic and won't get you a sustained, lasting love. I'm an oversharer. So there's a balance, but I really believe you want to be loved for being yourself. So start from the beginning. Yep.
I had a question for you. Have you ever been ghosted? And how would you recommend people handle that today? Or women, actually. How would you recommend women handle that?
I'm sure I have been in some version. Yes. How would you handle it? It hurts and it's painful. Don't forget, it's not just saying something about you. I don't believe it's saying something about your worth. It's saying something about that person's capacity to be vulnerable, to communicate, to be honest, direct, and clear. And so you don't want them. You want someone who is going to say exactly how they feel, and it's the right thing to do if you've developed a connection with someone to let them know that you're not interested. I would also say soothe the part of you, talk to the part of you that feels hurt, and remind that part what it deserves. But that idea of rejection is protection.
If someone is about to get into a relationship right now, and I'm thinking about women especially, what are some red flags they need to be careful about? Other than, the usual stuff that people talk about, what are some not so obvious red flags that you have found in your research?
The hot and cold person, the person who's talking about a future with you when they don't know you yet. They don't know you yet. They're idealizing you. And maybe they're coming from an emptiness inside. How people talk about other people. So people will have wounds, but and because of those wounds, they'll talk about disconnection to certain family members. But if it's a very black and white, rigid view that lacks compassion and lacks awareness, I'd be aware of that. Because, I mean, to be in relationship, we need to see the flaws and the strengths. We need to hold it all together. So that's really important. If they're always blaming the other person, they're putting other people down, they get angry really easily, they're jealous easily, they break rules, I'd be on the lookout.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you were at that moment, I'm just looping back to a moment in your life where you called off the wedding. And you were in that moment, you were contemplating about things. You saw that you're repeating certain patterns and this would be a mistake if you went forward. How did you handle that situation? Because it must have been uncertain and there must have been fears as you were doing it. How did you handle it?
Yeah, I was going back and forth a lot. I was trying to get us to couples therapy. I was trying to get him to therapy. I was already in therapy. And so all that anxiety, I guess, was telling me something, and I had to listen to it. And my therapist was saying things, and I couldn't ignore all of that. And in that moment, for me, it was about listening to a really important voice about my values, about the life I wanted for myself. I also think it was about acting with integrity. I think being a therapist was really helpful, and I want to model healthy behaviors and healthy communication and not be a hypocrite. And I just wanted to be happy. And so it was becoming clearer and clearer that I couldn't reconcile things. But a pretty defining moment was him not being up for working on things. Yes, so that effort part. Yeah.
So it seems like you were trying to see if some form of therapy could help. You're in this difficult moment. Is there a way out? You were contemplating your solutions, and then it seemed like it's not going to work. Or I've tried this important thing and it doesn't seem like he's going to make those shifts, or he's valuing those shifts right now. And so based on that, if we go on this path, it's going to be troubling. Was there anything that gave you that source of strength to take this step?
Well, I think simply being honest with myself and true to myself. I had my parents' voices in the background and friends as well. And that peace, like, life was not peaceful anymore. There was so much conflict, so much stress, no excitement about this wedding or a future. And I knew how it was going to look. That image, I think that was one important thing, that image of me walking down the aisle, I just could not picture that. I could not picture me getting there and being able to say yes wholeheartedly. So I think I'm so unhappy right now that being on my own has to be better. That's the better choice. And I couldn't ignore that. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. And thank you for speaking about it. I read that you mentioned attachment styles in relationships. What are attachment styles? And what are the different types of attachment styles?
Yeah. I think a really simple way to think of it is how we bond and connect. And so as soon as we come into this world, we're bonding and connecting with our parent, our first caregiver, and we will have a particular temperament as well, and our caregiver will be responsive and able to soothe us really well, or they may struggle to soothe us and pick up on our emotions because of their own temperament, stress, trauma. And so if we get a caregiver who's really responsive, we'll end up feeling really secure within relationships. We will trust that others are safe, that others can comfort us, and that we're lovable and worthy of connection. And unfortunately, lots of us, we don't get that experience. About half the population don't get that experience because our caregivers have their own trauma, mental health stress. And so because of that, they're not always picking up on our needs and soothing us. And so we can become very anxious and preoccupied about reaching out to another. We question whether they're actually safe and reliable for us. And because of those experiences, we may tend to overread what's happening in a relationship, be very hyper vigilant about another person's emotions, what they think of us, and question, are we okay? Or because of those early life experiences, we may actually retreat and withdraw from relationships because they don't feel safe, to protect ourselves. And so that gets set up really early in life, and it will follow us throughout our life. It gets set up really early on, it continues, and we replay out the pattern that we had with our early caregivers in our romantic relationships, unless we do the work.
Is it possible for someone to change their attachment style as they grow?
Yeah, I think so. I think I'm pretty securely attached at the moment, and I was certainly an anxiously attached person, and I would tend to choose more avoidantly attached partners. And that makes sense because them pulling away or they're not able to be responsive would rev up my anxiety. And so that would feel pretty familiar, and I would work really hard to get connection back. And then dating and choosing my partner, I was able to choose someone who was pretty responsive. I mean, sometimes he pulls away when he's stressed, but pretty quickly I'm able to go in there and say, hey, are we okay? What's going on for you? And we'll chat about it. We will repair. I might apologize. And we'll get back on track. And so I think we can have those experiences that are really corrective, and we can then have inside of us this sense of, I'm okay and we're okay. And so I really have become quite an independent, self-regulating person within this relationship. And I think that was supported by the inner child work of talking to little Phoebe and when I was anxious. And so I think there's lots of hope for people that it can change.
That's awesome. So what I'm learning from this conversation is basically you learn to model a certain type of bonding with people when you're young. And you learn, if I behave like this is how I need to, this is how someone else will respond. Or if someone else responds like this is what my natural emotion needs to be, so that I get back that attention, so that I get back that connection. So it's almost like your wired way of getting attachment back or getting the connection back when you feel like you've lost the connection.
Exactly. And a lot of us will cling and pursue and want to go in there. And some of us, we're scared that we'll be rejected by the connection. So we retreat and we get very stuck. And that's the problem.
And what's crazy is, based on whatever I've learned over the years in the relationship field, we one thing is what you've modeled growing up. But the other thing, what you highlighted, is it kind of becomes home. You start becoming familiar with, this is how love should be. Or you'll hear words like, this is what happens in relationships. Or this is how love is always. And to me, that's a signal of, okay, this is the pattern you've learned. And this is what you now consider home. And people will get back to that home, which is a signal of them repeating those mistakes.
Over and over and over and over.
over and over. So, what does it really take to find love, according to you?
A belief that it matters, certainly, and from that value will come persistence and effort. But I think it's effort. We're in a different world. I think we're more isolated, and so we have to be really proactive in seeking connection. We have to be out in the world, have hobbies, have interests, say hi to people in the community, get on dating apps. So it takes effort and intention and choice, and it takes being able to ride the emotional bumps when you're meeting a new person. So you want to have a sense of connection to yourself and how you manage anxiety. And it takes a level of self-love and self-worth. And what I mean by that is accepting that you want love, knowing that you're worthy of love, understanding how you should be treated. And then it's about having a good radar. Like, how do I detect? Because we're not born with a good radar if we've grown up with trauma and chaos. And so we've got to harness this radar. And so it's also, how do I feel when I'm with this person? Am I feeling calmer and safer? And are they responsive to my needs? And, how do they go with emotions and vulnerability? Or is my nervous system in chaos all of the time? And so it takes a lot of conscious awareness and reflecting in every single moment, I think. And it going for someone who's good and kind, not just the person who's there.
Right.
Yeah.
What would you just say to someone who has just gone through divorce, an ugly relationship, and they're exhausted? And somewhere they've made this connection that this is all futile because I didn't get what I thought it was going to be. What would you say to them?
I would say you're allowed to be angry and you're allowed to be hurt, and validate those emotions as they come up. And then when you're ready, I'd ask you to look at your patterns and your choices and how you showed up in that relationship and what you're willing to own about that. And I would say, let's do it differently this time. Like, how do you protect and conserve your energy and what you give to people? It reminds me of someone I spoke to this week who was so burnt out from dating, exhausted. Walls were completely up, guarded, deeply mistrusting. And it was also really hard for her to own and accept that. And so I think it's hard to move forward when you can't own that the walls are a choice. They're protective. So I'd ask people to be really curious about what would happen if I put the wall down a little bit. What would happen if I opened myself up a little bit more? Is it worth taking that risk? Because if your walls are up to protect yourself, rightly so, you're not going to let anyone good in. And you might miss someone who is good. But it's like the dark coloured glasses. You can't see over the wall, through the wall. So one idea I had for that person, just look for the good people in this world, the kind people. Because if they exist, maybe there's a good partner out there for you too.
Okay, that's beautiful. Are there any dating... Let me rephrase it. Is there anything that you consider absolute BS in the dating world?
I think how we approach dating is not good. I think we're also scared of being vulnerable, and dating apps have made us quite judgmental and superficial. And I was thinking about this morning, like I could have really missed my partner because he wasn't clear on what he wanted. And so maybe I put him in a category of not wanting a relationship. And so I'd say keep an open mind. I think what's really BS in the dating world is how women need to talk and how we should be and how we should hold back and not say how we feel and not show all of our cards. I think that advice is really, really toxic and keeps you disempowered. And again, a partnership's built on healthy communication and someone who's comfortable with you having a voice. There's a lot of bad advice out there. And I think there's a lot of advice I remember listening to that created so much more anxiety in me. Like, sit and wait for him to call and reach out. Well, don't do that forever. That's
Yeah.
not how a healthy relationship dynamic is set up. So be really mindful. People do want to see vulnerability. They want to see emotions. They want to see a human, right? Not someone who's got a mask on.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. Final question. 3 things anyone must do before they restart their journey into dating.
Be really clear on their patterns and where they have gotten off track. Do that with kindness and compassion. Yeah. And be clear on the future you want for yourself. Allow yourself to dream and envision and imagine, because not a lot of us do. We settle. And build a life that you love and would be wonderful to share with someone. Okay? And get really good at that radar, who you give your energy to, your sense of self-trust. Listen to your body.
Okay. So the 3 things would be, first, identify your patterns. Second, be clear about what you want. And third, get better at radar about who you want to trust and who you feel you need to be guarded with.
Yes. Yeah. Listen to the body.
Awesome. This has been such an incredible conversation. Thank you for giving us your time and energy and letting people know about so many important facets of dating.
Yes, I loved our chat. It's my huge pleasure.
Thank you so much. This has been awesome. We hope to see you again on the podcast. But until then, thank you.